What would you do if the sky went dark, not because night had come, but because an alien war fleet had covered your sun? For 2 million humans on Vega Prime, that question became real in only 11 seconds. Before the first shot is fired, take 1 second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves stories where humanity refuses to break. The Catherine fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at 0347 hours, Vega Prime Standard Time. For exactly 11 seconds, every sensor on the planet screamed. 11 seconds was all the warning the colony received. No long alarm. No speech from command. No time for parents to gather their children and run. No time for workers to leave the mines. No time for pilots to say goodbye. Just 11 seconds of sirens, flashing red lights, and voices on every channel saying the same thing again and again. Unknown fleet. High orbit. Massive energy readings. Incoming attack. Then the sky changed. The bright blue above Vega Prime turned the color of burning copper. The morning sun vanished behind 300 alien warships. They were shaped like black wedges, sharp and silent, each one so large that even the smallest looked like a moving mountain. They did not arrive like explorers. They did not send greetings. They did not ask to speak. They came in a perfect formation, so clean and exact that it looked less like a fleet and more like a mathematical equation written across the heavens. Every ship carried battle marks along its hull. 41 glowing symbols. One symbol for every civilization the Catherine Empire had conquered. 41 worlds had fallen before them. 41 species had learned to kneel. Now they had come for humanity. When their ships locked into position above Vega Prime, the northern continent fell into false night. Millions of people looked upward and saw only darkness. The children saw it first as something strange. The adults understood it faster. War had arrived. On the lead ship, Supreme Warlord Voxer stood inside a command chamber made of black metal and living crystal. He was tall, armored, and powerful, a creature raised from birth to believe that conquest was not an act of cruelty, but the natural order of existence. The strong ruled. The weak served. That was the Catherine way. Voxer had done this 41 times. 41 worlds. 41 victories. 41 civilizations that had looked up at his fleet and understood that survival meant submission. Most species broke quickly. Some sent military ships. Those ships died. Some sent diplomats. Those diplomats begged. Some prayed. Some hid. Some tried to fight on the ground, but their weapons were old, their soldiers were afraid, and their governments were too slow. The Helvari had surrendered in 43 minutes. They were intelligent, peaceful, gentle, and totally unprepared for violence on a planetary scale. Their leaders cried during the broadcast. Voxer remembered feeling disappointed. There was no honor in breaking something that was already soft. His analysts told him humans would not be much different. Young species. Only 2 centuries of space travel. Emotional. Divided. Attached to families. Protective of civilians. Dependent on supply lines. Limited military reach outside their own systems. Voxer read every report. He believed every line. Vega Prime was a colony, not a fortress. It had farms, mines, universities, residential towers, hydroponic valleys, and 3 large cities. It had children, hospitals, cargo ports, and research stations. It also had a small defense force. Very small. 37 fighters. That was all. Against 300 alien warships, 37 human fighters rose from the planet. Commander Elena Vasquez led them. She was 43 years old. She had fought in 3 border conflicts. She had survived ambushes on ice moons, orbital raids, and the slow politics of military command. She had a daughter back on Earth named Priya, who had just turned 7. In the first seconds of the climb, Elena thought of her daughter. Not because she was afraid. Not because she wanted to cry. She thought of Priya because the image gave her clarity. A small girl with dark hair, laughing in a garden under a safe sky. That was what this was about. Not territory. Not glory. Not revenge. A sky where children could laugh without looking upward in fear. Elena knew the numbers. Every pilot behind her knew them too. 37 fighters could not stop 300 warships. Their job was not to win the sky. Their job was to write the first line of a much larger story. She opened the squadron channel. Her voice was calm. No shaking. No drama. Just steel. Vega Prime Defense Force, for the record, I want it known that no one in this squadron was ordered to do this. We are here because we chose to be. Let us make sure they remember we were here at all. 36 voices answered. Some were steady. Some were scared. All of them kept flying. The fighters punched through the upper atmosphere, their engines leaving white trails behind them. For a moment, from the ground, they looked like sparks rising toward a storm. Then the Catherine opened fire. 22 fighters vanished in the first volley. They did not explode like ships in old movies. There was no fireball. No spinning wreckage. No last scream across the radio. They simply stopped being there. Alien energy weapons touched them, and those human pilots became light. Elena did not flinch. She rolled her fighter hard, dropped beneath the nearest Catherine vessel, and released every magnetic cluster mine she carried. The mine struck the alien hull. They detonated. The blast spread across black armor like rain across stone. Nothing happened. The alien ship did not even tremble. Elena breathed in through her nose. She knew. She had always known. She opened the colony emergency channel. Commander Vasquez to all Vega Prime networks. Execute Protocol 7 now. Do not wait for further authorization. Then she turned her fighter. Not toward open space. Not toward escape. Toward Voxer's flagship. She pushed the throttle to maximum. Her fighter screamed forward, a tiny human machine racing at a ship larger than a city. For 3 seconds, she saw the flagship clearly. Its hull was made of black plates, each one the size of a sports stadium. Blue alien symbols glowed across its surface. Defensive energy shimmered around it like heat above desert sand. Elena kept flying. The shield hit her fighter. In less than a heartbeat, the ship and the woman inside it were crushed into something smaller than a fist. The battle lasted 11 minutes and 17 seconds. When it ended, the Catherine owned the sky. Voxer watched the last human fighter disappear from his display and felt nothing close to concern. The resistance had been brave, perhaps. Irrational, certainly. But short. He ordered the standard surrender broadcast. It went out in 73 human languages. The message was cold and clear. The people of Vega Prime had 72 hours to gather at assigned collection points. All weapons and technology were to be surrendered. All local authority was to dissolve. Humanity was to acknowledge the supremacy of the Catherine Empire. Voxer leaned back and waited. He expected fear. He expected crying leaders. He expected a request for terms. What came back was not a surrender. It was one audio file. 11 seconds long. It came from a communication relay buried 3 kilometers beneath the planet. The signal was narrow, hidden, and aimed so carefully that Voxer's own communication system nearly missed it. There was no image. No music. No flag. No speech. Only Elena Vasquez's voice. She had recorded it in the 14 seconds between ordering Protocol 7 and turning her fighter toward the flagship. 4 words. Marcus, it is done. Go. Then came a string of spatial coordinates. That was all. Voxer ordered his cryptographers to study it. They worked for 7 hours. They searched for hidden code, military plans, weapon signals, and encryption layers. They found nothing. To them, it was only a short emotional message from a dying soldier to someone named Marcus. They were wrong. Those 4 words were not a personal goodbye. They were the activation key for the most complex military operation humanity had ever created. 25 light-years away, on Earth, General Marcus Holt stood in a secure room beneath the Pentagon. 41 officers stood around him. No one spoke when the transcript arrived. Marcus read the line once. Then he read it again. He placed the transcript on the table. His face did not change. But every person in that room understood that history had just moved. Marcus turned to the officers. He said 7 words. Initiate Operation Deep Water. All phases now. And humanity, which had been waiting with terrible patience for this exact moment, began to move. The Catherine Empire had conquered 41 worlds. But never once had they met a species that had been expecting them. Now they were about to learn what that felt like. Stay with the story, because this is where the real trap begins. Like the video if Elena's courage already earned your respect, subscribe for more HFY stories, and share this with a friend who needs to see what humans do when the odds look impossible. 6 months before the Catherine fleet entered human space, an artificial intelligence called Eris intercepted a military communication near the Vega system. Eris stood for Autonomous Reconnaissance and Extraterrestrial Surveillance. Publicly, Eris was nothing special. It was listed as part of a deep space geological survey network. A set of quiet probes studying dust, radiation, mineral fields, and old asteroid belts. That was the lie. The truth was far larger. Eris was the most classified intelligence program Earth had ever built. For 11 years, it had watched alien civilizations within 500 light-years. It listened to signals, mapped travel routes, studied language patterns, measured military movement, and quietly built profiles of species humanity had never officially met. Most of the data was harmless. Trade signals. Navigation beacons. Scientific broadcasts. Old disputes. Religious songs. But some signals were darker. Expansion fleets. Slave markets. Planetary blockades. Weapons tests. Occupation records. The Catherine Empire appeared in Eris records 4 years before the attack on Vega Prime. At first, the Empire looked like a distant power with no direct path toward human space. Then its fleets began shifting. Slowly. Carefully. Like a predator turning its head. When Eris intercepted the military burst near Vega, it needed 16 hours to crack the encryption. Another 12 hours to confirm the translation. Inside the message was a target list. Humanity was third. 2 species above humanity had already been attacked. Below humanity were 38 more. The list included planetary values, conquest timelines, estimated resistance levels, population data, and military classifications. Beside humanity's name was one Catherine word. Eris searched 4 years of alien intelligence to translate it correctly. The closest human meaning was simple. Pray. Eris delivered the discovery to only 4 people. The President of the United States. The Secretary General of the United Nations. General Marcus Holt. And Dr. Sarah Okafor. Sarah Okafor was a xenobiological weapons researcher. She had spent 15 years studying how alien predator species might fight, think, conquer, and fail. Her most famous classified paper had a plain title. Why Every Spacefaring Predator Species Makes the Same 6 Mistakes. Marcus Holt read the entire paper in one sitting. Then he called Sarah directly. He did not waste time with introductions. Tell me how to make them make all 6. Sarah was silent for a moment. Then she said, how much time do we have? 6 months. Then we do not try to beat them in the first battle. No. We make them believe the first battle is the whole war. Yes. That was how deep water began. The plan itself was older than the crisis. For 20 years, a small chain of military planners had quietly worked on the same dark question. What if humanity met something hostile among the stars? Not curious. Not diplomatic. Not confused. Hostile. What if something came that did not see humans as equal? What if talking failed before talking began? Every public government statement spoke of peace, discovery, and shared futures among the stars. But hidden in black budgets and classified military simulations was another truth. Peace was the goal. Preparation was the insurance. Operation Deep Water had three main parts. The first part was Vega Prime. Marcus Holt knew the Catherine would strike there because Eris confirmed the target path. The planet was valuable. Its tritonium ore deposits could fuel fleets for years. Its location opened routes deeper into human territory. Its public defenses were weak enough to invite attack. So Marcus made Vega Prime look like bait. Over 5 months, 100,000 soldiers were moved onto the colony. Officially, they were support workers, engineers, medical staff, miners, logistics teams, construction crews, and environmental technicians. In reality, they were some of the best soldiers Earth had. Every one of them volunteered. Every one of them knew the truth. They were going underground before the invasion. They would wait in silence while the enemy stood above them. Then they would rise. Automated drilling machines worked beneath the 3 major cities of Vega Prime. They cut tunnel networks through rock and reinforced them with a strange black material called phase carbon. Sarah Okafor had created phase carbon through years of alien signal research. It could absorb the scanning frequencies used by the Catherine. Thermal scans, electromagnetic sweeps, quantum state detection, and deep ground mapping all failed against it. To Catherine sensors, the tunnels were not hidden. They were not there at all. Rock was rock. Stone was stone. Nothing beneath the cities lived or moved. That was what the aliens would see. At the same time, Marcus arranged the quiet evacuation of most civilians from Vega Prime. Not through a dramatic order. Not through public panic. That would have warned the enemy. Instead, people left slowly. A scholarship transfer. A medical relocation. A mining contract delay. A farming reassignment. A family visit to Earth. A cargo ticket moved forward. 1,000 small reasons. Then 10,000. Then hundreds of thousands. Over 5 months, the colony population dropped by more than 1 million without triggering a single public alarm. Some civilians had to remain. The plan needed witnesses, movement, refugee transports, and normal activity. 20,000 of those remaining colonists received what they thought was a routine flu vaccination. Inside the injection were passive tracking beacons. Microscopic. Dormant. Invisible to known scans. Designed by Sarah. They were not meant to harm anyone. They would shed naturally from the skin within 90 days. But if activated by a special quantum frequency, they would mark any alien vessel that had passed close enough to a tagged human. Elena Vasquez's final message carried that activation trigger inside the audio waveform. The moment she said, "Marcus, it is done. Go," every Catherine ship that had moved near a human refugee transport during the previous 72 hours was tagged. Flagships. Troop ships. Supply vessels. Weapons carriers. All 300 of them lit up on Eris tactical displays with location accuracy down to meters. The aliens believed they were hunters. They had become marked targets. The second part of Deep Water was hidden even deeper. The Black Fleet. For 31 years, humanity had been building ships no one publicly admitted existed. Not the clean ceremonial vessels seen at defense parades. Not the small patrol frigates sent to border stations. Not the orbital platforms governments used in speeches about security. The Black Fleet was different. It was built in darkness, funded through 22 layers of shell organizations, classified accounts, mining budgets, research programs, and fake infrastructure projects. 40,000 people worked on it. Most of their families believed they were employed in asteroid engineering, deep survey maintenance, or classified propulsion testing. In reality, they were building 800 warships. 800. Each one designed for a single purpose: to destroy the strongest hostile alien force humanity could imagine. The Catherine were powerful. Their empire was old. Their weapons were advanced. But the Black Fleet had been designed for something even worse, then recalibrated after Eris learned the truth about Catherine technology. That was one of the first mistakes predator empires make, according to Sarah Okafor. They assume younger species are weaker in every way. They look at public fleets and think they are seeing the whole picture. They do not understand that humans are very good at hiding the sharpest knife until the hand is already moving. Admiral Zara Chen commanded the Black Fleet. She was 61, calm, disciplined, and famous among the few who knew her for never wasting words. She had accepted command 11 years earlier when Marcus Holt personally briefed her. He had asked, "Do you want command of the fleet?" She had answered before he finished the sentence. Yes. Now she stood on the bridge of the ISS Rubicon, hidden in the shadow of Vega Prime's second moon. Around her, 800 human warships waited with engines silent and weapons cold. The Catherine fleet hung above the planet, 300 ships in perfect confidence. Chen looked at them on her display. Telemetry from the phase carbon relay. Perfect resolution, Admiral. Tracker confirmation. All 300 vessels tagged. Chen said nothing for several seconds. Inside a small panel on her command console was a photograph. Elena Vasquez in dress uniform, taken 8 years earlier at the ceremony where both women had received their deep water briefings. Not a memorial. A promise. Time to full authorization. 14 hours. Chen looked at Vega Prime below. Blue oceans. Green valleys. White clouds. A beautiful world pretending to be defeated. Somewhere under that surface, 100,000 human soldiers were sitting in the dark, waiting. Chen clasped her hands behind her back. 14 hours, she said. Then we introduce ourselves. On Voxer's flagship, something began to disturb the Supreme Warlord. At first, it was not fear. The Catherine had many words for fear. Fear of pain. Fear of dishonor. Fear of death. Fear of the void between stars. Fear of losing command. Fear of failing the Empire. This feeling was not any of those. It was closer to reaching for a door and finding it already open. The humans had vanished. His ground troops landed across the 3 major cities of Vega Prime. They moved through streets, homes, schools, hospitals, markets, storage stations, and government buildings. They found furniture, clothing, digital tablets, children's toys, half-read books, food in storage, family photos on walls. In one apartment, a pot of coffee was still warm. But there were no humans. Not one. The Catherine searched basements and maintenance tunnels. They scanned towers and shelters. They checked cargo containers, transport stations, underground parking blocks, sewage systems, emergency bunkers, and old mining tunnels. Nothing. The entire colony felt recently alive, but empty. Like a city that had taken one breath and then disappeared. Voxer's science commander, Kavath, ran every scan the Catherine military possessed. Thermal. Gravimetric. Quantum. Electromagnetic. Biological resonance. Deep ground pulse. Nothing. No hidden population. No moving life forms larger than local animals. No army. No resistance. No heat signatures. Kavath reached a logical conclusion. They evacuated before we arrived. They had warning. Voxer accepted this. It fit his experience. Intelligent species fled when defeat was certain. The humans must have detected the fleet and escaped. It was impressive. Moving so many people so quietly required strong organization. He would include that in his report. Above average logistics. Above average discipline. Still irrelevant. Vega Prime was valuable even without its people. Its tritonium deposits were rich enough to fuel a Catherine expansion fleet for 6 years. Voxer ordered 80,000 occupation soldiers to spread across the planet and begin resource extraction. The alien troops moved through the empty cities with growing ease. They set up processing stations. They opened landing zones. They mapped ore fields. They placed patrols along roads. They watched the sky, the horizon, and the empty streets. They did not watch the ground beneath their feet. That was their second mistake. They believed absence meant escape. They did not understand that humans could wait. For kilometers below New Denver, the largest city on Vega Prime, Sergeant First Class Diego Torres was doing push-ups. He reached 312 when his earpiece crackled. Torres, Catherine ground forces confirmed at 80,000. Dispersal complete across all 3 sectors. They are setting up extraction infrastructure. Torres stood. He was broad, scarred, and built like a man whose body had argued with explosions more than once. His face had been rebuilt in places. His hands looked like tools. He had spent 22 years in special operations across Earth, Mars, and 2 moons. In combat, he had one emotional setting. Quiet focus. Nothing else. He looked down the tunnel. 2,000 soldiers stood within sight, their armor dark under blue phase carbon light. They checked weapons. They checked seals. They checked each other. They had done the same thing every day for 93 days. Torres knew 98,000 more soldiers waited in other tunnels across the network. They set up extraction equipment, he asked. Confirmed. They believe the colony is empty. Confirmed. Torres allowed himself a small smile. Good, he said. Let them get comfortable. The soldiers under Vega Prime were not bored. Torres had made sure of that. Every day underground had been used. They trained in silence. They rehearsed emergence drills. They studied Catherine movement patterns. They ran simulated strikes against exact models built from Eris intelligence. They learned where Catherine armor was strong and where it was weak. They learned how Catherine soldiers communicated through glowing neural nodes in their bodies, a biological network that linked units together in real time. It was one of the greatest strengths of the Catherine army. It was also one of its greatest weaknesses. Sarah Okafor had designed resonance disruptors to attack that system. The disruptors did not kill. They did not burn through armor. They did not explode. They fired a narrow frequency that interfered with the Catherine biological communication nodes. A Catherine soldier hit by a disruptor was still alive, still armed, still dangerous. But now he was alone. No command signal. No squad link. No shared awareness. No perfect coordination. For a species trained to fight as connected units, isolation was a shock. For humans trained to fight in chaos, it was an opening. That was Sarah Okafor's third rule. Predator empires perfect the kind of war they already know how to win. Then they forget that war can change. Torres had 50 strike teams. Each team had 2,000 soldiers. Each team had a target. Every Catherine patrol, landing pad, command post, supply zone, and extraction platform above them was being tracked through hidden surface sensors and relayed through Eris. The aliens thought the planet was blind. In truth, Vega Prime was watching them breathe. Then Sarah Okafor's voice entered Torres's channel from an analysis bay 4 tunnels east. She always sounded the same when she found something important. Flat, fast, and slightly breathless, as if her body was trying to catch up with her mind. Torres, I cracked the Catherine command channel upgrade. They switched protocols 48 hours ago. I have been reading their operational orders since this morning. What did you find? They are not here for conquest only. Their main priority is the Tritonium. 60 days of extraction. Then they leave 10,000 troops as garrison and move the main fleet. Move it where? There was a pause. Short. Heavy. Earth. Torres stood completely still for 4 seconds. Then he opened the command channel that reached all 100,000 soldiers beneath the planet. He spoke 8 words. We are not letting a single one leave. Above them, 80,000 Catherine soldiers moved through Vega Prime like owners. They flew drop ships over silent streets. They built drilling towers over alien soil. They placed banners of the Empire on human buildings. They did what they had done on 41 worlds before. They occupied. They measured. They extracted. They believed the story was already over. They had no idea that under their boots, humanity had just sharpened its teeth. Maybe 30%. But it was enough. The phase carbon reflected the energy upward with a shifted frequency. No longer tuned to humans. Tuned to Catherine biology. The returning wave hit the low orbit formation. The ships closest to the planet had moved down to support the occupation force. Their biological shielding was inactive because Catherine doctrine had never imagined their own extinction pulse coming back at them. Crew members in exposed compartments died where they stood. 43 Catherine vessels went dark within seconds. 37 more lost more than half their crews and drifted out of control. Some collided. Some spun. Some fell silent. The lower half of the Catherine formation collapsed into chaos. On the Rubicon Bridge, Admiral Chen watched the enemy formation break apart. For 1 second, even she did not understand what had happened. Then she understood enough. A gift had appeared on the battlefield. A commander did not stare at gifts. A commander used them. All Black Fleet vessels, she said. Target disabled ships. Priority is disable and board. I want them intact. The Black Fleet surged forward. Human boarding craft launched across the battlefield. Eris coordinated 190 boarding operations at the same time, using stolen Catherine hull schematics built from years of intercepted data. The Catherine who remained alive fought with savage discipline. They were warriors. No one who survived Vega Prime ever denied that. But they were shocked, cut off, outmaneuvered, and facing humans who had been preparing for this exact war for decades. Below, the tunnel hatches opened again. Torres brought his forces back to the surface. New Denver looked wounded. The extinction pulse had scoured the exposed surface. Trees were gone. Open gardens were gray. Some streets were dusted with dead alien bodies. Buildings still stood, but life on the surface had been burned out in silence. Torres moved through it with a tight jaw. Vega Prime had survived. But survival had a cost. He opened his channel. Okafor, status. No answer. 20 seconds passed. Then her voice came through, thin and strained. I am in the university. West Wing. 2nd floor. I think I was about a second and a half slower than the math assumed. Torres ran. He found her in the lab, sitting on the floor with her back against the wall. Catherine equipment glowed around her. Her face was pale. Her hands shook. She was breathing slowly, carefully, like each breath had to be negotiated. But she was alive. Torres dropped beside her. You absolute lunatic. Sarah gave him the smallest smile. The math was right. You stayed up here alone. If I had told you, you would have argued. Yes, because that is what sane people do. Then I would have lost time. Torres looked at her, furious and relieved at once. Did it work? She asked. He checked his command display. 300 Catherine ships. More than 200 destroyed, disabled, or boarded. Voxer's flagship was still in high orbit, shielded and damaged, but alone against hundreds of human ships. Torres nodded. Yes. It worked. Sarah closed her eyes. Good. Then I was right about the geometry. We are getting you to medical. In 20 minutes. No. Torres. Her eyes opened. There was pain in them, but behind the pain was something sharper. I pulled data from the Catherine systems before the pulse fired. There is something bigger than this battle. What could be bigger than stopping an extinction weapon? Winning the next 41 wars before they begin. Torres stared at her. Then he understood that she was not being dramatic. She never was. He stood and called for a medical team anyway. But he gave her the 20 minutes. Because some people are dangerous with weapons, and some are dangerous with ideas. If Sarah Okafor is becoming your favorite kind of scientist, hit like, subscribe to keep these stories coming, and share this episode before the next twist lands. It took 6 hours to capture Voxer. His flagship did not surrender. Even after its escorts were disabled. Even after its engines failed. Even after human boarding teams cut through 3 outer decks. Even after Eris shut down its primary power relays. Voxer held the command core with 6 personal guards and a backup power system. He ignored every message. No negotiation. No surrender. No request for mercy. The Catherine did not give mercy easily, and they did not know how to ask for it. The final boarding team cut the command door off its hinges. The guards fought until they were unable to stand. Voxer was taken alive because Admiral Chen wanted him alive. Not because he deserved mercy. Because he was useful. They brought him aboard the Rubicon in restraints. He stood inside a secure holding bay, 2 meters tall, wrapped in cracked battle armor. His exoskeleton plates were damaged in 4 places. His glowing communication nodes were dark, almost black. For a Catherine, that kind of darkness meant shock. But Voxer still stood like a commander. He looked at the humans in front of him and counted. That was what he did. Count enemies. Count ships. Count losses. Count possible futures. Admiral Chen stood before him, a full meter shorter. She did not raise her voice. She did not smile. I will offer you the same terms you offered Vega Prime, she said. The translator rendered her words into Catherine. Surrender your fleet schematics. Acknowledge the military capability of the human species. Transmit an accurate message to your empire describing what happened here. Voxer was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. You have destroyed 1 fleet. Yes. The Empire has 400 more. I know. Larger fleets. Older weapons. Commanders who will not make my mistakes. Possibly. This is not victory. Chen tilted her head slightly. No. It is a delay. A generation at most. Then the Empire comes for your entire species with the full weight of 12,000 years of military development. That would be a serious problem, Chen said, if we were planning to wait for them. For the first time, Voxer looked uncertain. Not afraid. Not yet. But aware that the human in front of him knew something he did not. What have you done? Chen did not answer immediately. Because at that exact moment, inside the Rubicon Scientific Analysis Bay, Sarah Okafor was doing something no one had authorized. She was wrapped in a thermal blanket. One arm was locked inside a temporary medical sleeve. Her skin was pale from radiation exposure. A doctor stood nearby, unhappy and ignored. Sarah sat at a terminal with Eris connected to the captured Catherine network. For 38 hours, she had been building a transmission package from the data stolen during the battle. At first, human intelligence officers assumed she was looking for weapons. She had those. Then they assumed she was looking for fleet routes. She had those too. But what Sarah had really found was far more dangerous. The Catherine Empire's internal communication architecture. The quantum relay channels that connected Central Command to every occupied system. Every garrison. Every administrative station. Every military supply node. Every colonial command hub. And most importantly, every one of the 41 conquered worlds. The Catherine occupation strategy depended on isolation. Each conquered species was kept alone. No communication with other occupied worlds. No shared news. No proof that anyone else resisted. No sense of how large the empire truly was. No knowledge of victories, defeats, weaknesses, or supply limits. Every world was made to believe the same lie. You are alone. Resistance is local. The empire is infinite. Submission is survival. That lie had worked for centuries. Sarah was about to kill it in 19 seconds. Her transmission package contained 4 things. The first was a counterpulse weapon design based on what she had done at Vega Prime. She simplified the science so any species with basic industry could understand it. She included materials, diagrams, safe build ranges, warning notes, and emergency field instructions. The second was phase carbon construction data. How to create it. How to shape it. How to hide beneath it. How to use it against Catherine scanning systems. The third was Eris tactical doctrine. A full analysis of Catherine weaknesses, rewritten in simple protocol language so 41 different species could translate it. How Catherine soldiers communicated. How their fleet formations worked. How their shields adjusted. How their occupation units behaved. How their command structure failed when isolated. The fourth file was written by Sarah herself. Its title was plain. What we did at Vega Prime and how you can do it too. It was 11 pages. Clear. Practical. Direct. No speeches. No poetry. No empty hope. Just usable truth. You are not alone. The empire can be hurt. These are the tools. These are the methods. Begin when ready. Sarah had not asked Marcus Holt for permission. She had not asked Admiral Chen. She had not asked the President, the Secretary General, or any council. She knew the diplomatic risks. She knew the legal questions. She knew some people would call it reckless. She also knew that if permission was required, permission would be delayed. And delay was how empires survived. Eris said, Dr. Okafor, transmission path is open. Once sent, recall is impossible. Sarah looked at the screen. Good. You are bypassing human command authorization. Correct. Admiral Chen will be displeased. Admiral Chen will understand after she has already become angry. General Holt will request an explanation. He can read the title. There was a pause. Then Eris said, the package is ready. Sarah breathed in. She thought of Elena Vasquez. 11 seconds. That was all Elena had. She had used them. Sarah pressed send. The package launched through 41 Catherine relay channels at once. It traveled inside the Empire's own unjammable communication network. The network was designed to prevent outside interference. It was never designed to stop an internal broadcast. That was the fifth mistake. The Catherine built a cage so strong they forgot the bars could carry sound. The full package transmitted in 19 seconds. In the holding bay, Boxer felt the signal before he understood it. His communication nodes flickered. Once. Twice. A broad-spectrum transmission was moving through Imperial channels. Not toward him. Through him. Past him. Outward. Across relay towers, command satellites, occupation hubs, military stations, and administrative nodes. To 41 worlds. Voxer's face changed. For the first time, not shock. Horror. What did you do? He asked. Chen received the notification on her wrist display. She read it once. Then again. For 4 seconds, she was silent. Then she said carefully, "It appears Dr. Okafor has been making her own strategic decisions." Voxer stepped forward until his restraints stopped him. "You do not understand what you have released." Chen looked up at him. "I think we do." "No. You have spread weapons to slave worlds. You have created disorder. You have set fire to systems you cannot control." Chen's voice remained calm. "No. We told prisoners where the doors are. The first rebellion began on Heskari. Heskari was the home world of the Valen, a species occupied by the Catherine for 87 years. The Catherine considered them fully pacified. Quiet. Useful. Broken. They were wrong. The Valen had not resisted openly in 40 years. They had no visible army. No major weapons. No public leaders calling for freedom. But they had patience. A kind of patience that Catherine never understood. For 87 years, Valen engineers had preserved technical knowledge through oral traditions. They hid mathematics inside songs. They hid materials science inside craft rituals. They hid chemistry inside family cooking forms. They hid military memory inside children's games. The Catherine observed these customs and marked them as harmless culture. They never looked deeper. That was the sixth mistake. They thought conquered people stopped thinking because they stopped speaking. When Sarah's transmission reached Heskari, it spread first through hidden scholars, then mining engineers, then repair workers, then old family circles that had waited 3 generations for a reason to wake. The Valen took 26 hours to decide. Not because they were afraid. Because they were careful. They checked the science. They tested the diagrams. They compared the phase carbon method to materials stored in Catherine extraction depots. Then they began building. The Heskari garrison fell in 9 days. Not because the Valen were stronger. Because they knew every tunnel, every factory, every food route, every sleeping shift, every maintenance door, and every weakness in the occupation system. The Catherine had ruled the planet for 87 years. The Valen had studied them for 87 years. The difference mattered. 12 other occupied worlds rose in the first month. 8 more in the second. On one world, a species known for music used sonic mathematics to tune disruptors through public broadcast towers. On another, aquatic engineers flooded Catherine ground bases with mineral-rich water that destroyed their armor joints. On another, a desert people turned mining lasers into precision anti-ship batteries and cut troop carriers out of the sky. On another, enslaved factory workers changed one small component in every Catherine drone produced for 3 weeks. When the rebellion began, the drones shut down at the same time. The Empire had always believed rebellion failed because worlds were isolated. Now they were connected. They believed subject species were unarmed. Now they had schematics. They believed fear was permanent. Now fear had competition. Hope. Not soft hope. Not gentle hope. A practical, angry, well-instructed hope with diagrams attached. The Catherine Central Command tried to respond. It ordered fleet movements. It locked relay channels. It executed governors. It sent emergency commands to garrisons. But the message had already gone. Knowledge does not return to silence just because an empire orders it back. Voxer remained aboard the Rubicon, under guard, watching reports arrive piece by piece. Heskari lost. Tau Mira in open revolt. Oran Gate sabotaged. Vel Dominion supply chain broken. 3 garrisons silent. 5 relay stations captured. 12 colonial governors requesting evacuation. 2 fleets redirected from human space. Then 6. Then 19. The great coming revenge against Earth did not come. It could not. The Empire was turning inward, trying to hold 41 worlds that had all learned the same truth at almost the same time. Humanity had not just won at Vega Prime. Humanity had made the Catherine Empire fight everyone it had ever hurt. That is when Voxer finally understood the nature of the enemy. Humans did not need to be the strongest species in the galaxy. They only needed to find everyone else who had been waiting to stand. Now the Empire is bleeding from every side, and the story is not finished yet. If you are still here, show it with a like, subscribe for more deep space HFY stories, and share this one with someone who believes courage can travel faster than fear. 6 weeks after the battle, General Marcus Holt arrived on Vega Prime. The planet was still wounded. From orbit, the northern continent looked scarred. Long dark bands crossed the land where the extinction pulse had burned exposed life away. Fields were being replanted. Irrigation systems were running again. Construction vehicles moved through damaged cities from sunrise to sunset. New Denver no longer looked abandoned. It looked stubborn. That was better. Marcus walked through the rebuilt command center without ceremony. Soldiers saluted. Engineers stepped aside. Medical drones moved past him carrying supplies. He nodded when needed, but he did not stop for praise. He had not come to celebrate. He had come to understand the cost. He found Priya Vasquez at a viewport overlooking the city. She was 23 now, a signals officer. She had requested assignment to Vega Prime the week the planet was declared secure. No one had the courage to deny her. She had her mother's eyes. Not just the color. The stillness. That rare kind of calm that did not mean peace, but precision. Every expression chosen. Every emotion controlled, not absent. Marcus stood beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. Below them, workers repaired the avenue where Catherine patrols had once marched. A group of children from returning families helped plant small trees in white soil. Soldiers watched from rooftops. Priya kept her eyes on the city. She knew, didn't she? Marcus did not ask who. Yes. She knew what Protocol 7 would start. Yes. She knew the trackers would mark the fleet. Yes. She knew the Black Fleet was waiting. Yes. She knew she was not coming back. Marcus was quiet. That answer required care. She knew the mission gave her almost no chance of survival. Priya breathed in slowly. But she flew anyway. Yes. Priya's jaw tightened. Why? Marcus looked through the glass at Vega Prime. At the damaged streets. At the new trees. At the families returning to a world that had almost become a grave. Because someone had to make the Catherine believe they had already won. Priya closed her eyes for 1 second. Then opened them. Marcus, it is done. Go. Holt nodded. 4 words. She said your name. She trusted me to understand. Did you? Yes. Priya turned to him then. There was no accusation in her face. That made it harder. Did you ask her to do it? Marcus held her gaze. No. But you knew she would. Yes. The truth sat between them. Heavy. Clean. Ugly. Necessary. Priya looked back out at the city. My mother used to tell me that bravery was not the same as wanting danger. Marcus said nothing. She said bravery was choosing what must be protected, then accepting the cost. That sounds like Elena. Priya watched the children plant another tree. I hated her for it when I was young. Every time she left. Every time a message came late. Every time I saw her uniform by the door. And now? Now I still hate it. Marcus looked at her. Priya's voice remained steady. But I understand it. There are some victories that do not feel like victory at first. Vega Prime was one of them. The colony survived, but thousands had died. Elena and her pilots were gone. Surface ecosystems were damaged. Cities needed rebuilding. Families returned to homes with alien boot marks still on the floor. But Vega Prime was free. That mattered. The first children born there after the occupation would grow up under an open sky. They would see memorial stones, yes. They would learn the names. They would hear about the day the sky turned copper and the ground opened. But they would not grow up kneeling. That mattered more. Sarah Okafor survived too. Barely. The doctors told her she would need months of treatment. She told them she had reports to write. The doctors told her she could write them from bed. She argued. The doctors sedated her once and were never forgiven. When Marcus visited her in the medical wing, she was sitting upright with 3 screens floating in front of her and a nutrition tube she clearly resented. "You look terrible," Marcus said. "You always begin conversations with charm. You broadcast classified military technology to 41 occupied worlds without authorization." "Yes. I should have you arrested." "Will you?" "No." "Then sit down. I need to show you something." Marcus sat. Sarah moved one hand and opened a projection of the Catherine Empire. Red systems marked active rebellions. Yellow marked communication breakdowns. White marked confirmed liberated zones. It looked like stars catching fire. "How bad is it for them?" Marcus asked. "Worse than they admit. Better than they deserve." "That is not a number. 14 major uprisings are now self-sustaining. 22 garrisons are requesting fleet support. 9 supply corridors have been cut. Central Command is trying to protect core worlds while suppressing outer systems. Their timing is collapsing. Can they recover?" "Yes." Marcus looked at her. Sarah continued. "They are old. Powerful. Brutal. We should not confuse surprise with defeat. They still have fleets, shipyards, commanders, and worlds that have known only obedience for generations. But they have lost the most important weapon they had. Fear." Sarah shook her head. "Certainty." Marcus understood. Empires did not survive on weapons alone. They survived on the belief that nothing else was possible. Sarah had broken that belief. On the Rubicon, Voxer asked to speak with Marcus Holt. Chen allowed it, under guard. They met in a secure chamber. No table. No ceremony. Just 2 commanders standing across from each other. Voxer looked thinner somehow, though his body had not changed. His armor was gone. His restraints remained. His communication nodes glowed faintly, weak but active. "You are General Holt," Voxer said. "Yes." "The one named in the message?" "Yes." "The dead pilot trusted you." "She did. She died for a plan. She died for people." Voxer studied him. "Do humans always make that distinction?" "The good ones do." Voxer took that in. "Your scientist has doomed millions." Marcus did not answer quickly. "War already doomed them. Rebellion will kill them. Occupation was killing them slowly. They were alive. That is not the same as free." Voxer's eyes narrowed. "Freedom. You speak as if it is a law of nature." "No. It is a choice people keep making, even when others try to make it impossible. The Empire brings order. The Empire brings silence. Silence is peace." Marcus looked at him with cold patience. "No. Silence is what fear sounds like from a distance." For the first time, Voxer looked away. Not because he agreed. Because somewhere in his mind, the reports from 41 worlds were proving Marcus right. The Catherine had mistaken quiet for loyalty. They had mistaken obedience for belief. They had mistaken survival for surrender. And now every one of those mistakes was coming due. The war did not end quickly. No real war does. The next year became known as the Year of Broken Relays. Humanity and the freed worlds formed contact chains through captured Catherine systems. Translation was messy at first. Some species communicated by sound, some by light, some by chemical pulses, some by electrical fields, and one by patterned heat transfer that required special equipment to interpret. But they learned. Slowly at first. Then faster. They shared maps. Medical knowledge. Industrial methods. Stories of occupation. Names of the dead. Names of the missing. Names of collaborators. Names of heroes. Not all alliances were easy. Some liberated worlds distrusted humanity at first. They wondered why humans had waited until their own colony was attacked. They wondered whether this was simply another empire replacing the first. Sarah expected those questions. She encouraged them. Suspicion is healthy, she said in the first interspecies council meeting. The Catherine demanded trust and punished doubt. We will not do that. Question us. Watch us. Disagree with us. Freedom that cannot survive argument is just another prison. That line was later translated into 32 languages. On Heskari, Valen children painted it on the walls of old Catherine tax offices. On Vega Prime, it was carved beneath Elena Vasquez's memorial. The memorial itself was simple. No giant statue. No heroic pose. Just 37 names engraved into dark stone, facing the sky. Elena's name was first because she led them. But the others were there too. Every pilot. Every call sign. Every life. Priya visited the memorial on the first anniversary of the battle. She stood there alone at dawn. The sky was clear. No alien ships. No copper fire. Only morning light. She touched her mother's name. For a moment, she was not an officer. Not a symbol. Not the daughter of a legend. Just a daughter missing her mother. Then she placed a small paper star at the base of the stone. On it were 4 words. You used them well. The camera of history often looks for the largest explosion, the biggest ship, the final battle. But sometimes the heart of a war is one name on stone. Like this video if that line hit you, subscribe for more emotional sci-fi, and share it with someone who remembers the people behind every victory. 2 years after Vega Prime, the Catherine Empire launched its first full counter-offensive. 3 major fleets moved toward human space. Not one fleet. 3. Each larger than Voxer's invasion force. Their commanders had studied Vega Prime. They knew about phase carbon. They knew about Eris coordination. They knew about resonance disruptors. They had upgraded shields, isolated command systems, biological protection against pulse reflection, and new boarding defenses. They would not make the same mistakes. That was what their admirals believed. And in one sense, they were right. They did not repeat Voxer's exact errors. They made new ones. The human alliance no longer fought alone. At the Battle of Marin Corridor, the Catherine fleets entered a narrow travel region between 2 gravity wells, expecting to face human ships. They found human ships, yes. But they also found Valen signal craft that could mimic Catherine command traffic for just long enough to delay shield synchronization. They found aquatic engineers from Thalassa running coolant sabotage through captured supply drones. They found Oran swarm pilots who flew tiny ships through gaps no human pilot would survive. They found desert artillery ships from Sahal, built from mining rigs and hatred. They found Eris watching all of it, not as a single commander, but as the mind connecting a coalition the Catherine had never believed possible. The battle lasted 9 hours. The Catherine lost 1 fleet outright. A second retreated with heavy damage. The third surrendered after its command vessel was disabled by a boarding team made of 6 species who had never met before the war. That surrender shocked both sides. Catherine fleets did not surrender. But this crew had seen the truth. The Empire was not infinite. It could lose. It could bleed. And if it could lose, then dying for it no longer felt like destiny. That idea began to spread inside Catherine society too. At first, Central Command called it enemy corruption. Then cowardice. Then treason. Then infection. But the soldiers had questions. Why had they been told humans were weak? Why had occupied species been described as pacified when they were ready to rise? Why had the Empire hidden the scale of rebellions? Why were fleets being sent to die in systems officially listed as secure? Catherine's citizens had lived under the same imperial certainty as their subjects, only from the other side. They had been told conquest was natural. Expansion was duty. Obedience was honor. Doubt was rot. Now doubt had evidence. A secret recording of Voxer's Holding Bay conversation leaked into Catherine military channels. No one ever proved who released it. Chen denied it. Marcus denied it. Sarah smiled and said nothing. The recording spread. Thousands of Catherine officers heard a human general say, "Silence is what fear sounds like from a distance." Some laughed. Some raged. Some deleted it. Some listened again. Then came the first Catherine refusal. A supply captain ordered to bombard a rebellious city on Talmira refused to fire. His crew backed him. Central Command executed the captain's family. That was supposed to end the matter. It did not. 3 more ships refused similar orders the next month. Then 12. Then a whole maintenance station delayed fleet repairs for 17 days by reporting false pressure failures. The Empire had spent 12,000 years teaching the galaxy to fear it. It had never prepared for its own people, asking whether fear was all it had left. Sarah called this the internal fracture phase. Torres called it the part where bullies realize everyone has been counting their teeth. Chen called it useful. Marcus called it dangerous. They were all correct. War expanded. So did diplomacy. Humanity had to learn quickly that freeing a world was not the same as healing it. Some liberated planets wanted revenge against every Catherine alive. Some wanted isolation. Some wanted technology. Some wanted food before speeches. Some had internal conflicts older than the occupation. Some had leaders who used freedom as a ladder to power. The coalition nearly broke many times. It survived because of one principle established after Vega Prime. No member species would be forced into obedience by the Alliance. Not even for efficiency. Not even for strategy. Not even when commanders hated the delay. That principle frustrated military planners. It saved the Alliance. Because every species in the coalition knew what forced order looked like. They had all survived it. They would not build it again. 5 years after Vega Prime, the northern continent was green. Not fully healed. Scars remained. Some forests never returned in the same way. Certain animal lines were gone forever. Fields had to be rebuilt with imported soil cultures. The university building where Sarah reflected the pulse became a protected historical site. Students hated that because it made research access difficult. Sarah hated it more because she said history should not block laboratory ventilation. But people came anyway. From Earth. From Heskari. From Thalassa. From Sahal. From worlds whose names humans still struggle to pronounce. They stood outside the university and looked up at the phase carbon panels preserved along the walls. Tour guides explained what happened. Simple version for children. Detailed version for engineers. Sacred version for grieving families. Sarah refused to attend the dedication ceremony. She watched it from a medical office while pretending not to care. Torres sat beside her, eating an apple. You should be out there. No. They are naming the research wing after you. I asked them not to. They ignored you. People do that too often. Torres laughed. On the screen, Priya Vasquez stepped to the podium. She was older now. More sure of herself. A captain. Her voice carried across the crowd. Vega Prime was not saved by one person. It was saved by thousands. By pilots who flew knowing they would not return. By soldiers who waited under the ground. By engineers who built what could not be seen. By doctors who treated the wounded. By civilians who kept secrets because secrecy meant survival. By allies who heard the truth and chose to rise. She paused. But every story has moments where everything narrows to a single choice. My mother had 11 seconds. Dr. Okafor had 19. Neither of them used that time for themselves. Sarah looked away from the screen. Torres said nothing. Priya continued. The Catherine thought humans would fight for territory. They were wrong. Humans fight for people. And when people fight for each other, fear has to work much harder. The crowd was silent. Then applause began. Not loud at first. Then growing. Sarah muttered, that was emotionally manipulative. Torres bit into his apple. That means good speech. I dislike being turned into a lesson. Too late. She sighed. How are the latest rebellion fronts? 3 stable. 1 messy. 1 bad. Bad how? Governor on Ikrith used our weapons to overthrow the Catherine, then declared himself eternal protector. Sarah closed her eyes. I hate people. You save them anyway. Poor habit. Torres stood. Chen wants you in command strategy at 1600. Tell Chen I am medically unavailable. She said you would say that. What else did she say? She said the meeting is in your medical office. Sarah opened her eyes. I also hate Chen. No, you do not. No. But I enjoy saying it. The war had changed all of them. Marcus Holt grew quieter as the conflict expanded. He carried every casualty report like weight in his bones. He had built the plan that saved humanity, but saving humanity had opened a century of war across the stars. He never pretended otherwise. In private, he recorded messages for families of the dead. Not automated letters. Not official templates. Real messages. He knew he could not do it for all. He did as many as he could. Admiral Chen became the most feared human commander in Catherine history. Her fleet tactics were studied, copied, cursed, and eventually avoided whenever possible. Catherine admirals began using a phrase for battles involving Chen. Black water. It meant any engagement where the surface looked calm until something rose from below and pulled you under. Chen heard the translation once. She approved. Torres became the first commander of the Vega Ground Doctrine School, where soldiers from 15 species trained together. His opening lecture was famous for being only 32 seconds long. The enemy does not care about your courage. The enemy cares about your mistakes. Make fewer than they do. Class begins now. Sarah Okafor became both beloved and deeply inconvenient. Scientists admired her. Politicians feared her. Generals needed her. Medical staff dreaded her. Students adored her because she answered hard questions honestly and easy questions with visible disappointment. When asked why she sent the transmission without authorization, she always gave the same answer. Because permission would have arrived after the dead no longer needed it. Not everyone liked that. No one forgot it. The war continued. But the direction had changed. Before Vega Prime, the Catherine Empire expanded. After Vega Prime, it defended. That difference was everything. The Empire still controlled many core systems. It still had shipyards, fleets, loyal commanders, and weapons hidden from every database Eris had stolen. But it no longer owned the future. That future had become contested. Messy. Bloody. Alive. Humanity had entered the stars thinking survival meant building walls. Vega Prime taught them something harder. Sometimes survival means opening doors for everyone trapped behind them. The Catherine learned a different lesson. A young species can be dangerous. A divided species can unite. A soft world can hide a black fleet. A dead pilot can start a war. A wounded scientist can break an empire. And a colony that appears empty may only be holding its breath. We are close to the end now, and every piece is coming together. Press like if this story earned it, subscribe so you do not miss the next one, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that quiet does not mean defeated. 10 years after the first attack, Vega Prime held the signing ceremony for the Free Systems Accord. It was not held on Earth. Earth leaders suggested it, of course. Earth was the human home world. It had history, power, and symbolic weight. But the other species asked for Vega Prime. No one argued. The ceremony took place in the rebuilt central square of New Denver, above one of the original phase carbon tunnel hatches. The hatch remained visible beneath a glass floor. People from 41 liberated worlds stood over the place where humanity had risen from the ground. Some breathed oxygen. Some wore fluid suits. Some floated inside pressure fields. Some communicated with light pulses translated through hovering devices. Some stood in silence because their species considered formal speech before agreement to be disrespectful. It was chaotic. Beautiful. Difficult. Alive. Priya Vasquez attended as a senior signals commander. Torres stood near the security line, uncomfortable in formal dress. Sarah Okafor arrived late, blamed the transport schedule, and ignored 3 ministers trying to greet her. Admiral Chen stood beside Marcus Holt. Both older now. Both watching the crowd with the look of people who understood that ceremonies were also battlefields, only with better clothing. The Accord did not create an empire. That mattered. It created a mutual defense and recovery alliance. Shared intelligence. Open communication. Non-forced aid. Joint defense. Scientific exchange. Rights of withdrawal. Rights of dispute. No permanent ruler. No central throne. No subject worlds. It was imperfect before the ink dried. Everyone knew it. That was why it had a chance. Perfect systems usually required someone to lie. When the time came to speak, Marcus Holt stepped forward. He looked out at the gathered worlds. For a moment, he saw not leaders but ghosts. Elena in her cockpit. The pilots rising. Soldiers waiting underground. Civilians leaving in silence. Sarah on the lab floor. Catherine ships going dark. Valen engineers building weapons in secret. Children planting trees in burned soil. Then he spoke. 10 years ago, an empire came here because it believed fear was the strongest force in the galaxy. It believed every world was alone. It believed victory meant silence. His voice was older, rougher, but steady. It was wrong. A translation wave carried the words through the square. Vega Prime did not prove humans are superior. It proved something better. It proved that no empire is infinite once its victims can speak to each other. Sarah, standing off to the side, muttered, "Good line." Torres whispered, "You wrote it." "I improved it." He still had to say it properly. Marcus continued. "This accord is not a promise that we will never disagree. We will. It is not a promise that we will never fail. We will. It is not a promise that freedom will be easy. It never has been." He looked toward the memorial stone at the edge of the square. "It is a promise that no world represented here will be made to suffer alone again." That line became the foundation of the accord. Not law by itself. Not strategy. Something simpler. A boundary. No world alone again. The signing took 5 hours because every species had different legal customs. Some signed with ink. Some with genetic seal. Some with voice pattern. Some with heat mark. One delegation required a witnessed silence lasting exactly 7 minutes. Sarah nearly lost patience during that one. Chen looked amused. When it ended, the crowd did not cheer immediately. There was too much history in the air for simple celebration. Then the Valen delegation began a low humming song. One by one, others joined in whatever way their bodies allowed. Human voices. Light pulses. Water drums. Metal chimes. Electrical harmonics. Heat rhythms. The sound was not clean. It did not match. It was not beautiful in the traditional sense. It was better than beautiful. It was free. Far beyond Vega Prime, the Catherine Empire listened. What remained of Central Command denounced the Accord as a terrorist coalition. Loyal fleets prepared counterstrikes. Core world propaganda declared that humanity had infected lesser species with rebellion and disorder. But the old certainty was gone. Even in Catherine space, people whispered. Some about defeat. Some about lies. Some about Voxer, who remained imprisoned but alive, writing long strategic analyses for human intelligence in exchange for medical care for captured Catherine soldiers. He never apologized. Not once. But in his reports, his language changed. At first he wrote subject species. Then occupied species. Then former subjects. Then allied worlds. Sarah noticed. She said nothing for months. Then one day, during a recorded interview, she asked him, "When did you stop calling them slaves?" Voxer looked at her. His nodes flickered slowly. "I noticed that word made my analysis less accurate." Sarah leaned back. "That is the most Catherine answer possible." "Is it wrong?" "No." "Then why do you react that way?" "Because one day you might accidentally become honest, and I want to be there when it happens." Voxer did not respond. But later, in a private file, he wrote one sentence that human historians would argue about for decades. The Empire's greatest failure was not underestimating human weapons, but underestimating the political power of shared pain. Sarah read it once. Then sent it to Marcus. Marcus read it twice. Then said, "He is learning." Chen said, "That makes him more dangerous." Torres said, "Good. Dangerous people should sometimes point the right direction." Priya said nothing. She kept a copy. 20 years after Vega Prime, the war had not fully ended, but the Empire no longer existed in its old form. Its outer territories were gone. Its occupied worlds were free or fighting. Several Catherine military provinces had broken away. Some became hostile states. Some sued for peace. Some collapsed into internal conflict. Some, surprisingly, asked to join the Accord as observers. That request nearly shattered the Council. Many liberated worlds refused to sit beside Catherine representatives. Others argued that refusing them would repeat the old pattern in reverse. Humanity did not decide for everyone. The debate lasted 11 months. In the end, the Accord allowed observer status under strict conditions. No command authority. Full war records. Open archives. Reparations processes. Trial access. Protection for dissidents. It was ugly work. Slow work. Necessary work. Freedom was not a single explosion. It was maintenance. It was meetings. It was food shipments. It was court records. It was rebuilding hospitals. It was teaching children the truth without feeding them only hatred. It was deciding what justice looked like when the guilty were many, the dead were more, and the future still needed to be built. Vega Prime became the place where these hard conversations happened. Not because it was pure. Because it was scarred. No one could stand on Vega Prime and pretend history was clean. The planet itself argued against simple stories. Green fields grew beside memorial glass. New towers rose near burned stone. Children played over tunnels built for war. The sky stayed open. That mattered most. On the 30th anniversary of the battle, Priya Vasquez stood before the 37 pilot names and spoke to a crowd gathered across the square. She was older than Elena had been when she died. That fact sat quietly inside her all day. She wore a simple dark uniform. No medals except one, her mother's flight pin. She began with the question every child on Vega Prime learned in school. What can be done in 11 seconds? The square was silent. Priya looked up at the sky. You can panic. You can freeze. You can pray. You can say goodbye. Or you can choose. She touched the stone. My mother chose. Her pilots chose. Dr. Okafor chose. Sergeant Torres chose. Admiral Chin chose. General Holt chose. The people under the ground chose. The worlds that rose after us chose. Her voice softened. The Catherine thought survival was the same as surrender. Vega Prime taught us that survival can also be preparation. She paused. And preparation can become freedom. In the crowd, Sarah Okafor sat in a hover chair she insisted she did not need. Torres stood behind her. Marcus Holt was gone by then, buried on earth under a plain stone. Admiral Chen was gone too, her ashes scattered in deep space beyond the moon where the Black Fleet had waited. Voxer, old and watched by guards even now, listened from a secure diplomatic enclosure. No one cheered when Priya finished. Instead, every ship in orbit turned its lights toward the planet. Human ships. Valand ships. Thalassan vessels. Sahal artillery craft. Oran swarms. Even 2 Catherine observer ships. For 11 seconds, they held silence. Then one by one, their lights came on. The sky filled with stars that were not stars. Priya looked upward. For the first time in many years, she smiled like her mother. Not because the pain was gone. Because it had become part of something larger than grief. This story began with a dark sky. It ended with a sky full of lights. But the truth of Vega Prime was never only about ships. It was about timing. 11 seconds for Elena. 19 seconds for Sarah. 92 seconds for soldiers to vanish underground. 64 minutes to break an occupation. 9 days for Heskari to rise. 10 years to build an accord. 30 years to understand what it all meant. The Catherine came to Vega Prime expecting humans to survive only by surrendering. They expected fear. They expected panic. They expected another world added to the 41 marks on their ships. Instead, they found a species that had studied them in silence. A fleet hidden in shadow. An army under the ground. A scientist willing to turn a weapon inside out. A pilot willing to spend her last breath on a command that would wake the stars. And when the Empire finally understood what humanity had done, it was already too late. Because the message had already been sent. The worlds had already heard it. The prisoners had already looked at the locks. The fire had already started. Humanity did not defeat the Catherine Empire because humans were the strongest. They did it because they understood something the Empire had forgotten. Power is not only what you can destroy. Power is what you can make possible for others. The Catherine had built a galaxy of isolated fear. Humanity gave that fear a network. A map. A weapon. A reason. And once people know they are not alone, no empire can make them unknow it. Vega Prime would stay green. Children would keep being born there. Teachers would keep telling the story. Pilots would look at Elena's name before their first flight. Scientists would study Sarah's panels and complain about her messy notes. Soldiers would train in tunnels and learn that waiting can be a weapon. Diplomats would argue beneath open skies. And every year, for 11 seconds, the planet would fall silent. Not for defeat. Not for mourning alone. For memory. Because 11 seconds was all Elena Vasquez had. And she used them to start the end of an empire.